Good morning. It's quite a horrid start to trade for Indian equities this Monday morning, and we've begun with a gap down opening. It's a sea of red across the board for Indian equities, and that's because of the worries about the Covid-19 infection, and we'll come to that in just a bit. Let's look at the headline numbers first. We've got a huge spike in the India Volatility Index. The benchmark's down close to 2.5% after the first half an hour or so of trade. The broader markets, which have actually been outperforming the benchmarks in the recent past, are seeing bigger cuts, in fact, than the benchmark. And that's an indication of the risk-off sentiment that is currently pervading Indian equities. The mid-cap and small-cap index down about 3.8 and 4% respectively at this point, and all of the sectoral indices are trading in the red today. The deepest gashes are seen in the banking index. The Nifty Bank down over 1,300 points at one point at the start of trade. And the PSU banks are losing the most ground. The PSU banking index down about 6% or even more than 6% at one point. The realty index is the other one with the deep dent today. Is down about 6%, 6.5% or thereabouts. So a big gashes seen even there. The so-called defensives are also seeing lost ground. The IT index, which would have normally been in focus today because of earnings kicking off, down about 0.7%. Perhaps the only stock on the Nifty 50 that is gaining is Infosys, which, as you know, is going to be considering buyback later this week. Now, all of this, of course, is in the context of the rising COVID-19 cases that we've been seeing over the past few weeks, starting mid-February, but the last week has been worrying to say the least. In fact, the latest print in the 24 hours to 8 a.m. this morning, India reported close to 1.7 lakh fresh additions to COVID-19, the overall tally, and that is hugely worrying. In fact, the mortality rate, we've seen over 900 deaths related to COVID-19 in the 24 hours to 8 a.m. this morning, and that is also worrying. If you look at the last 6 days, we've seen 6 days in a row of over 1 lakh cases being added on a daily basis. And well, it's because of all of that that the Maharashtra government is considering very seriously a lockdown for 2 to 3 weeks. They are likely to meet today, the top government functionaries, to discuss the possible SOP and the regulations that could be imposed. We could see a lockdown if there is no other way to curb the infections. And that is primarily the worry that investors have right now. How much of an impact are you going to see to economic growth? We have seen a recovery take place, but remember, even the RBI governor pointed to the possibility of a downside risk to economic growth if COVID-19 infections rise significantly. At that point, when he spoke at the Monetary Policy Committee's review earlier in the month, we were still seeing localized lockdowns, but a full lockdown would be a huge impact to economic growth, and that really is weighing on sentiment. Of course, later today you have TCS results. We kick off the earnings season with Tata Consultancy Services, and that should have been front and center, but of course COVID-19 is the biggest story that we're tracking right now.